This podcast is a part of the PodMania podcasting network. Check out podmania.co.uk to check out more of our great podcasts, features, reviews, match ratings and previews spanning the crazy and diverse world of professional wrestling. Hello guys, and welcome to another episode of the Young Lioncast, your fortnightly audio source for all things New Japan Pro Wrestling, right here on the PodMania podcasting network. I'm your host, Rob Good, and I'm joined, as ever, by the Joshi Mark himself, Chris O'Brien. How are you, Chris?
Want to know a funny story, Rob?
Always want to know a funny story.
So, I pay for New Japan World for my own account, and as you know, I've been watching through G1 Climax 27. I found out this morning that I wasn't logged into my account, I was logged into yours.
Well, that was going to be my next point, Chris, because as of January, I was stealing your Stardom World and you were stealing my New Japan World account. I didn't realize that was still the thing.
It wasn't. I paid because in January, I basically cancelled it for the month of December because fuck Tag League. And then you kindly gave me a password to do some stuff for the classics. And then, and I barely use New Japan World, but I use it enough to justify the £6 a month or £7, whatever it is. And then I was like, I'm gonna watch G127. And when I not realizing the only place I've logged into my New Japan account is on my laptop because I wanted to put it through my telly. But when I logged in on my iPad, I was still connected to yours. But I didn't realize in my head, it just naturally went, you must be logged into yours. But then this morning, New Japan World does thing where it sporadically logs you out even when it tells you to log you back in. And your details were in there. I'm like, oh fuck, why the fuck have I been playing for New Japan World?
Well, that was going to sort of work into my next bit, because obviously it can get quite boring on lockdown with not being allowed outside, but for me that's not necessarily a bad thing. So I was going to ask you, Chris, what have you been up to? What have you been watching? What kind of things have you been watching?
Well, aside from a copious amount of reading for university and some would say an excessive amount of pornography.
How much is excessive?
I don't know, Rob. I'm going to let you answer that question.
I don't think there's an excessive amount of pornography. I can't wait for my girlfriend to come in after hearing that statement.
Hang on, 3, 2, 1. No. No, I've been watching G1 27, Rob, because I wanted to watch wrestling in some sort of structure. A lot of people, they go, oh, just watch something random. And in my head, I'm like, okay, but I do that a fair amount, but also, for my main wrestling viewing, I don't want that. I want something structured. I want something I can follow. So, some people have been going back and watching old Raws. Some people have been... I don't know what other people have been doing, to be honest, but I've been watching G1 27 because I was like, oh, yeah, that's my first G1 that I've watched all the way through. I wonder if it holds up. And it kind of does. Kind of doesn't in many ways. It's super weird. So, as you know, I've been updating you.
You have?
With my rating. Garth has not commented once, which makes me think he's getting really annoyed with me at this point. But, it's weird. So, first of all, Ishii has apparently always been, the best thing about the G1.
Yeah, I think it's common knowledge that it was the G1 Climax, I think either 24 or 25, where he got this moniker of just being, the best thing about any given G1.
His first G1 in his first 2 matches were a match with Shibata and a match with Tanahashi, both of which I believe got 5 stars from Meltzer. So we've done that match with Shibata actually on this podcast. Go back to the archives. But also what's super weird is other people who are having great tournaments and people who aren't. For example, Suzuki isn't. like he's only got one 4-star match, and that's with Elgin. Like everything else has been like 3.75 or below, which like is good, but like it's Suzuki, it should be better. Although I do know about Okada matches coming up, and that's great. Yoshihashi has been a weird surprise.
You were very surprised about the output of Yoshihashi, weren't you?
Yeah, because like I don't know, you have to realize when I first watched this back in the day, 3 years ago, I was a much different New Japan consumer. Like I didn't go full. Like I've been watching New Japan in terms of big events since 2000, since Wrestle Kingdom 9. But I only really got into watching it full time in 2017. Like that's when I was like, no other wrestling really matters to me at this point. I'm just going to dedicate all my wrestling time to New Japan. Because like Ring of Honor got crap, NXT got a bit crap. Progress hadn't entered my life yet, so like there's a lot. Oh, ICW was also the other thing, but like so this was the first year when I watched all the way through that, and also I don't think it was on World the year before. If it was, I didn't know about it. So like I'm like I was still being influenced by people going, "Oh, Yoshihashi's boring," so I was going into a Yoshihashi match expecting to hate it. Whereas here, as I'm going in with like this benefit of hindsight, it's like Yoshihashi's good. Like he's just good. He's solid. Don't put a title on him, but make him a contender every once in a while. And then like 2018 and 2019 happened, and it's like no, never do that. Nagata's been fun. We discussed this in the chat the other day, but like Nagata fills a very specific niche I enjoy of old men dropping people on their heads.
Yeah, he's good at that. He's like I say, he had one of my my closet matches of the year last year against Ishii in the New Japan Cup.
Oh, what a match! Like that one I underrated it, didn't it? Because I remember I put forward Ishii versus no, it was something else from the cup. I can't remember what it was. And then you mentioned Nagata versus Ishii. I'm like, oh fuck, yeah. The fact that even I forgot that existed is like, yeah, that's probably deserves to be there. Rob, who is having an amazing tournament, and it makes me really conflicted, is Michael Elgin.
Well, let me tell you what I've been doing. So, inspired by, I literally filled both the sort of things that you were talking about. I randomly started just watching random matches, things like that. Old Japan. The real classic matches from the late 80s, early 90s. Anything involving Misawa really, or Tiger Mask. And then I was like, well, I'm like you, Chris. I wanted to watch something with meaning, with a storyline, something like that. So I ended up watching the G1 Climax from the following year, G1 Climax 28, for the exact same reason. It was the year that I actually took the time to watch the G1 Climax. I got caught up in G1 Climax fever, but I missed quite a few days because of life, really, and especially early on in the tournament. And I'm loving just going back and seeing this. And I know A Block is a massive slog because lol Makabe, but Michael Elgin is literally propping up that block.
He's so good, isn't he? Like every time he enters, in my head, I turn into Raymond Rowe. I'm just like, oh fuck him. Fuck Michael Elgin. And he starts wrestling, and I'm like, oh fuck, I love Michael Elgin.
He's such. If you take whatever we know about him outside wrestling, if you take that, put it to one side, his wrestling. I mean, the opening match of night 3, which I've just finished, he takes on Hangman Page, and I think it's about 12 minutes. And it was great. It was really, really good. A really, really enjoyable, hard-hitting match. It lasted 17 minutes. It was such good fun. Elgin looks incredible. Hangman makes him look brilliant. And the match to and fro, and he's got such good pacing in these matches. And, he's always been one of those in, like, these little competitions in these G1s to have those closet matches that you think, fucking hell, that was really good.
His match with Omega in 27, I've given 10 out of 10.
I saw that, yes. So I've just said I'm 3 days in. I'm just about to start day 4, which is Omega versus Goto as the main event. And obviously the final of your G1 is the same as the main event of Night 2, Omega versus Naito.
Ooh, spoilers.
What do you mean Goto didn't win it? I thought the G in Goto stood for G1, or the other way around. Yeah, but I watched, like I say, the Naito versus Omega match, and oh my god, it was fantastic.
Oh yeah, but the thing is, we had three matches in 3 different G1s, like blocks in 26 and 28, and then finals in 27. And my problem with 28, and I loved it, and at the time I gave it 10 out of 10, but like with the benefit of hindsight, it's nowhere near as good as those 2 matches.
See, it's not as good as the final from 27. That's a match on its own.
But also with 26, there's more story. There's more because it was later in the G1. This is make or break with both people, with Naito being the favorite in that block at the time. Like, people seem to forget how like much of a surprise it was for Omega to win. Like, everyone I heard, I was following, was saying either Shibata or Naito was going to win. So like the surprise of that sort of got made that much bigger, and then like just the fact that it was the finals made the second one bigger, and then that one, there was like, it was the first match, so like in reality both guys have time to either claw it back or lose that point. So
I agree with you. I do agree with you. I mean, they got the subtle storyline of Omega's comments during the press conference, because this was peak dickhead Omega, and how he said basically that Gaijin's worked hard than the Japanese wrestlers. And I thought that was quite a nice subtle undertone to the match about how Naito took personal issue with this. Yeah, it was. I thoroughly enjoyed the match. It's been match of the tournament of the 3 days I've watched. But yeah, keep up with our match ratings, podmania.co.uk. I don't know how many days you've got left, Chris. I think it's 5, including the finals.
Hold on. I am currently on night 14. I've only to watch the main event, and that's like, yeah, there's like 3 or 4 nights, including the finals. I'm still considering whether or not I'm going to watch all the finals, because like it's mostly tag matches, and like how it would set me up for disappointment, because I remember how excited I was, and I thought, oh, we're going to see Suzuki and Elgin in like a long title match, and then it's ended up being the worst title match I've ever seen, the worst singles titles match I've ever seen in New Japan while I've been watching. But still, is this
this isn't a Texas strap match, is it?
No, it's a lumberjack match.
Oh right, okay.
It was super weird, right? So like, it didn't need to be a lumberjack match to begin with, because literally the only reason Elgin has the shot is because he beat Suzuki in the G1. B, Elgin has no friends because he's not in a stable. So like, we were just getting like, and also we had a lumberjack match early in the year with Goa, who does have friends because he's in Chaos. So it's like, okay, why?
Fair enough. Yeah, maybe just watch the final then. You've watched the G1, just watch the final. So, coming up this week on the PodMania podcasting network, before we dive into these matches, so the Wrestling with Johners podcast, he released an interview with Alex Talbot, or known as Xander Calloway. He's also the GM and owner of the wrestling charity Wrestling For, the wrestling charitable promotion, so go and check that out. That's now up on the site. It was released on Tuesday. Obviously, this podcast will be released at 10 o'clock GMT on Wednesday, the 22nd of April. Coming up then, we've got the podcast, the PodMania podcast, reviewing this week's AEW Dynamite with the final quarterfinal matches of the TNT Championship. On Sunday, myself and Chris will be back with a retro version of the Stardom cast. Obviously, Stardom isn't producing any live content, completely understandably. So me and Chris are taking it upon ourselves to review the critically acclaimed trilogy of matches between Io Shirai and Maya Iwatani. So Stardom... Go on.
I should stress, I did try to get him to watch more recent matches, and he said no. So
I imagine there will be more time for Stardom Classic content in the next few months. But the matches we are talking about, in case you want to watch them before you tune in on Sunday, their match from Stardom Gold, May in 2016, their match at Year End Climax 2016, and then the final one at Stardom Galaxy Stars in 2017. So do join us for that on Sunday. It will be up at 11 p.m. GMT. And then finally on the site, you can check out our new retro review for WCW Super Brawl 8, which had the rematch between Hogan and Sting because they botched the finish of Starrcade 97. So that will be up on the site on Monday. So do check that out. Finally, I am joining John on the Wrestling with Johners podcast to do a retro review of SummerSlam 1992. So that should be really good. Obviously, the famed Wembley main event of Bret Hart versus British Bulldog. So looking forward to that.
Best of that card is wank, though.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to the rest of the card, I'll be perfectly honest, but there's some interesting bits that I'm looking forward to talking about. Any show with Papa Shango on is a great show, in my opinion. Shall we start then, Chris? Shall we start looking and delving into some of these matches?
Sure, I guess.
Fantastic. I mean, that is why we're here. That is the primary aim.
If we didn't. It'd be like, and today we're going to talk about Akira Taue. No, we're not. Fuck off.
Well, let's segue using Chris's very pointed segue there. We're starting with an All Japan Pro Wrestling match from the golden age of All Japan 1990 tag match. We're looking at the match from the All Japan Pro Wrestling October Giant Series 1990, Night 2. From the 30th of September 1990, and it's the team of Akira Taue and Jumbo Tsuruta versus Mitsuharu, Misawa, and Toshiaki Kawada. So basically, the basic premise is this was a start to feuds that would carry on. Misawa and Jumbo had a singles match earlier on, and it was very, very good. Akira Taue had previously been part of Misawa's stable, the Super Generation Army. But he defected to Tsuruta-gun, basically valuing Tsuruta's sort of mentorship over his friends in Misawa and Kawada. And those are the two main storylines heading into this match. Taue's defection and Misawa and Tsuruta. Now, I'll be honest, Meltzer gave this 5 stars. So I went in, perhaps wrongly, assuming to have this blow-away match. Every Misawa match that we've reviewed on this channel, and every Kawada match that we've reviewed on this channel, we've been full of praise for. And this match is great. I don't think it's 5 stars, but that's my own personal opinion. Chris, I will throw to you, though. What did you think of this match?
First of all, can we quickly talk about what's on the rest of his card? Because there's some weird oddities on here, from what I'm seeing. For example, Dynamite Kid in All Japan taking on the Malenko brothers.
Yeah, very strange. Johnny Ace and Kobashi versus Dan Spivey and Kamala.
But I think the Kamala in All Japan was a different person.
Oh, that's really disappointing, because the idea of the giant Ugandan monster Kamala slapping his belly at Kobashi before Kobashi legitimately murders him, I would have watched that for 16 minutes.
And then we have Andre and Stan Hansen taking on Abdullah the Butcher and Giant Barber in the main event, which is such a random main event that it's hard to put into words.
You're telling me?
The fact that we had that follow a 45-minute draw. A
45-minute time limit draw. Oh, yeah. Anyway, this match, Chris.
45-minute kayfabe. In reality, it's more a 43-minute
yeah.
draw. Which I don't know why. That's so weird and random.
Yeah, the timing worked out at about 43:29, so I'm not entirely sure why. I don't know whether they just ran out of moves. We finished early.
It's like, ring the bell. Yeah, no, this match was find. Honestly, this match was the wrong match, but I couldn't find the match I initially picked out for you. Like, okay, so backstory. So how we normally pick these matches is Rob doesn't let me pick anything, not even on my birthday. But then we'll have 5 categories. Rob picks 3 of those categories, and then I give him 3 options in each category. So this was a tag team category, and like I put in Miracle Violence Connection versus Kawada and Misawa in the tag league finals, which is a really good match. But I couldn't find that. The only ones I could find were sort of they're fine matches, but like not really good. So I was like, can we do this instead? Is it at the very least historically significant? So yeah, I did enjoy this match. It struck me as I'm watching it. This is definitely a 5-star at the time, but with our sort of more modern sensibilities, of course, it's not going to translate.
No, I agree. I think it's a great match. It's hard hitting. I will fight anyone who tells me that the scariest thing in pro wrestling is Kawada looking at you without his front teeth. I think that is the most terrifying thing to look at. Take your Brock Lesnar's, take your Shibata, take your scariest wrestler in the world. Kawada bearing down on you with no fucking front teeth is worse than any of those, hands down.
I'm going to dispute that and say Suzuki.
This is Kawada. He's got no fucking teeth. He looked like an absolute menace.
You've yet to see the match where he drops Misawa on his head on a powerbomb. But anyway, yeah, I do agree. At the time, definitely Kawada's super fucking scary. But it's weird though, because like the Tsuruta-gun dynamic was very similar to the Tenryu and Kawada dynamic from a couple years ago, and actually a couple podcasts ago, in the match against Hansen and
Gordy.
Like most of the offense Taue got was either by happenstance or because Tsuruta set it up, and like it's especially with like sort of Taue's pudgy face, it does look like Jumbo's his dad and is beating up the bullies for him.
It was very strange because even though Taue was, he defected, he left, that makes him a de facto heel, but he was getting a lot of babyface sort of reaction.
Because I'm not being funny, he was the punching bag.
I mean, he was burst out. Bearing in mind, again, this was a 45-minute time limit draw, which I didn't know happened in All Japan, bearing in mind the length of some of these matches. But he was burst open within 7 minutes of this match.
Yeah, it wasn't long at all.
Blood was literally crimson mask for the majority of the match, and then randomly, come the ending, all the blood had gone. It was like if Jumbo was his dad, his mum had come to ringside and just gone, "Come on, clean yourself up now, love. Come on, you look a mess."
If you do remember, Kawada did drag Taue backstage during the match.
That might have been where he was going. Yeah, come on, mate, you need to sort this fucking shit out.
Yeah. First of all, I need to ask this before we talk about more of the match. This is your first time, well, at least for this podcast, seeing Taue and seeing Tsuruta. What are your thoughts? And we'll start with Taue.
You can tell that they were priming him to be, not the next big thing because he was the same sort of era, but a huge thing. He wasn't there yet, I don't think, in this sort of, especially in the Misawa and Kawada era, and I think they dominated the match. He is a babyface. You can just see that he is going to be best as that champion that comes from underneath, having been dominated by someone like a Kawada, and coming and winning, overcoming the odds. I didn't. Again, this is my first time seeing Taue. I didn't see anything over the top special here, but again, he spent the majority of the match as Kawada's personal punching bag. So, I would need to know more. It's like, we're looking at this match in relative isolation. This feud went on for years. So, there was loads of these matches.
when you think of the first match you saw on this podcast being for Kawada being when he was a young lion with Tsuruta, and then we jump forward to like Misawa's and Kawada's biggest match, you saw a massive change. You're not going to see as big a disparity, I think, with Taue. Taue definitely did get better, but like he was definitely definitely the fourth pillar. You know what I mean? Like no, first way. You know when normally when naming the Beatles, there's always someone always forgets George Harrison.
Yes. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Ringo has a memorable name, and then it's John and Paul, and it's like, oh fuck, who's good? Like it's always like people just getting into reveals. It's kind of like that, or like you know what I mean? Like it's like if Matt Jindrak had been the fourth member of Evolution, you know, you'd struggle to remember, isn't it? Like he's there, but like he's not quite on the level of a Kawada or a Misawa or a like he's not a goat, but he's like a solid hand. But Tsuruta, what did you think of Tsuruta?
Yeah, fine. He was the muscle to Taue being battered. He was the hot tag. Again, you know. Say that entirely again.
He was the ace at this time.
Really? In 1990, was he indeed?
Yeah, Misawa wasn't like for context. He got his win back against Misawa, I think like a month later at Budokan, and then like the feud would go on, and then it got stopped because of his injury. But like essentially what happened was Tsuruta was meant to stop being ace by now. He was meant because Tenryu beat him, and Tenryu was going to be his the new ace, but then Tenryu fucked up.
Fair enough.
So like we're like, oh fuck, Tsuruta, you're going to need to be ace for a little while, and then like All Japan are very much ones for this slow road to overtaking Tsuruta. So like it took a while for like the Misawa and the Kawadas to beat Tsuruta. Like, but effectively, the story here was being played up that Tsuruta's like the old ace getting sick of all the young guns trying to take his spot, which like he plays perfectly. So.
He does. I mean, just before this, he'd literally, as you said, just lost the Triple Crown title. He lost it in June of 1990, which ultimately will be his last run with the Triple Crown. Do you know? Do you know who beat Jumbo for the title?
It was Hansen, wasn't it?
It was not, because I thought it was Hansen as well. It was Gordy. It was Gordy.
Yeah, no, because during this time, Baba. We're gonna need two more than one thing drawing people in. So he's like, this feud between the Misawa and Jumbo really doesn't need the Triple Crown. But if we put it on Hansen, we can have him feud with all the Gaijins in some cards, and then have Misawa and Jumbo headline other cards. Which in fact is a really good way of looking at it. Because like this feud didn't need the title until later on, and yeah, it really worked. And like this isn't the best example of Jumbo. I'm gonna have to show you some of the Tsuruta one of the Tsuruta matches, or like some more like the before Misawa, like before the beginning of time type thing. Yeah. But anyway, we went on about who these people are long enough. The match. Like the match started like weirdly like quick. Like Jumbo was throwing a backdrop driver on Kawada within like the first 5 minutes, and then it went into an extended heat sequence. And when I say extended, I fucking mean extended.
It was a long time. This is in a 45-minute match. It was bloody long. I did enjoy, and I don't usually enjoy this in tag team matches, because I prefer tag teams to be a cohesive unit. But obviously, Taue had only just defected to Tsuruta-gun, so we'll let him off. I actually enjoyed it. With the storylines going in, I really enjoyed that it did feel like two singles matches. You'd got Kawada and Taue, and then you'd got Misawa and Jumbo. And you got those two matches, those two storylines that went through this entire match. I mean, it's a typical All Japan match. There's a lot of strikes, a lot of stiff strikes, a lot of kicks, a lot of lariats. But that closing sequence where the bell goes just as Misawa is turning to go for the pinfall, it's beautifully timed. It's just a shame that it wasn't completely clear to start off with that is what happened. Because Misawa, I think it was Misawa, could have been Kawada, pinned Taue about 20, 30 seconds before this. And it was the closest of close two counts. I'm talking the referee pretty much had hit his hand on the mat. And I was like, I'm sure that was a 3. I'm sure that was a 3. And by the time I'd finished this inner dialogue I'd got going on with myself, the bell had gone. So I was like, has the ref just made a mistake and it was actually a 3 count? What the fuck is going on? And then realised, obviously, it got a time limit draw.
What I do like there is like you're blaming the match for you being distracted by yourself.
Doesn't take a lot, my friend.
Well, I will say, like, we complained about this, like, extended heat sequence, but, like, when it got to the end, like, stack this up against any of the great tag finishing sequence from recently, like, it's up there. Like, just bomb on top of bomb on top of bomb on top of bomb. And, like, just there's more urgency, especially in Jumbo, which is why I think he made such a good ace. You could see, even in, like, something so basic like his knee strike, how desperate he was getting to get this match done.
Yeah, I mean, Jumbo was great. Jumbo was great. He potentially, this, as you've already mentioned, potentially wasn't the greatest snapshot of Jumbo's career that we could have watched for this segment. But of this 45-minute match, again, this got 5 stars from Meltzer, and I can absolutely see why it got 5 stars from Meltzer. You know, it's just one of those matches that you can just see him getting off on. But for me, of this 45 minutes, maybe 15 of it was high pace, holy shit, this is 5-star match. But we've mentioned that extended heat sequence, and there was, especially maybe 27, 28, 29 minutes into the match, you could tell that they were filling time. They knew they got to reach the 45-minute time limit. They were waiting. So it's a shame because even though, you know, it's a well-worked match, that closing sequence, as we've already mentioned, of this match, go and check out the ending sequence and Taue getting bust the fuck open at the start. The middle of it, you can pretty much miss out, Chris. I don't think I'm out of line by saying that.
Yeah, like, nothing, like, there was no real selling of whatever limbs were targeted at the end of the match. And so, like, that's what you need to do in an extended heat sequence to, like, make it worth it. To, like, it needs to factor into finish, which it didn't. And it's a shame, really. Because obviously if this was a half an hour match, even, this would be great. Like, well, it is great, but, like, it would be unreal if it was a half-hour match, but because it sold so much, it's hard to give it above an 8 for me.
Yeah, I've given it an 8 as well. Just going on to Taue and you talking about how, you know, we'd see a huge difference in Taue, and obviously, you know, he is considered one of the 4 pillars, along with Kobashi, Misawa, and Kawada. He didn't win the Triple Crown Championship. He only won it once, which I didn't realise. I thought he'd won it twice. He only won it once, and he didn't win it for another 6 years from this point that we're watching here.
He'd always be, and you say that, you have to realise that Kobashi, Misawa, and Kawada had yet to hold it at this point as well.
He would go on to hold the Tag Team Championships with Jumbo 2 years later in 1992. And then between 93 and 96, he would hold the World Tag Team Championships with our old friend Kawada. So he'd hold those 3 times. And then a further 3 times from 97 to 2000.
Yeah, later in the Kings Road canon, Misawa and Kobashi were more mates, and then Kawada and Taue became a thing. Because to be fair, Tsuruta had to stop wrestling not long. I had to start slipping down the card not long after this due to illnesses. So that he really could, like, there was really no other option. And to be fair, I need to show you one of those 4-pillar tag matches because they are fucking unreal.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe that can be one of the options for next week. Or next
time. The only reason I hold off is because they're so fucking long.
This was a 45-minute time limit draw, mate.
I'm not gonna lie, I forgot it was 45 minutes. In my head I knew it was a draw, but I was like, oh, it would have been a half-hour draw because it wasn't a title match. No, 45 minutes.
So yeah, we've awarded this match 8 stars. Again, go and check out PodMania for our match rating. If you want to watch the match that we've just talked about, the link is on our Twitter page. So at the Young Lioncast, go and check that out. It is, I think the video is 47 minutes, and I thought, the match will probably be 30 minutes, and then it'll be 17 minutes of,
promos.
Yeah.
That's normally what happened, yeah.
But no. We were still going at 45 minutes and something, and I was like, what the fuck is happening? But yes, so if you want our advice, go and check out the closing, maybe 10 minutes of this, and the opening 5, but otherwise, it's not the best example of these 4. Right, Chris, let's move on then. So we've talked about a match that was a snapshot in time, a snapshot in a rivalry. This couldn't be any different if it tried. This was literally a one-off dream match. It had very little build. It was just a case of, we want to book this match, so we're going to book this match. We're talking about our old friend, a veteran of the Classic Match Review. We seem to cover him every single week in Kenta Kobashi, and he is taking on Samoa Joe from the 1st of October 2005 in Ring of Honor from the show Joe versus Kobashi. So that goes to...
RH did this up to 2011, where even in 2011 they had a show called Daniels versus Richards, which I'm going to argue seems less prestigious. Yeah, because we also had Joe versus Punk or whatever. We just did this. And to be fair, before we go into the match and what little story it has, can we quickly talk about its card because it's so fucking weird?
Yes. Oh, I was looking at the rest of this card earlier. Go on.
Right, so we opened with Claudio Castagnoli taking on Colt Cabana in a weirdly short match at 7 minutes 50. And then Daniel's taking on Izirio, who I have no clue who that is, and I'm going to click on him and it's going to be somewhere now. Nope. And Matt Sydal, so that seems fun. There's so many people you haven't heard of, or people you would not expect to be in Ring of Honor. For example, James Gibson, a.k.a. Jamie Noble, taking on Jimmy Wang Yang.
Oh, I was so happy to see that Jimmy Wang Yang was on this card.
Jimmy Rave with Prince Nana, who would keep a job for a long time, despite it's he's a West African prince, but you do not specify what West African country.
Do you think people need to know what West African country? Nah, be all right.
No, Africa's a big continent. Nah, it's all just
all just one prince.
Yeah, no, fucking God. Africa is still a place that wrestling is not taught to represent in any sort of class, have they?
You mean
but then,
Akeem the African Dream?
That sucks. Has there been an African person who's proud of his heritage that hasn't either been a joke or a stereotype?
I was going to make a joke and say Labias, but maybe not. Do you know what? No, I can't really. Justin Gabriel.
I know, he's a white dude from South Africa. It's very hard to feel good about that
one. We don't really talk about the apartheid on this podcast, do we?
No, it's very rarely brought up, but I can't imagine why.
The semi-main on this card, Chris. Talk us through the semi-main, mate.
Jack Evans versus Homicide. My God, it's like they fought about we're going to be owned by Jim Cornette one day. What match will he never book? Okay, let's book it.
They'd pretty much blown their wad by calling it Kobashi versus Joe, but aside from the McGuinness versus Jay Lethal pure title match and, an early stages Cesaro versus Colt Cabana, and okay, the three-way dance, Christopher Daniels versus Matt Sydal versus Azrael, I don't really think much of this card holds up, do you?
No. It is literally a one-match card by its almost very definition. But, yeah, I have no interest in seeing the rest of this card. And 2005, that's weird, because surely Punk's still with the company. No, 2005? Nah, probably not then. But, oh yeah, the summer of Punk would have been gone by then. But, yeah. There's just still, where's Bryan Danielson? Where's Jerry Lynn? Where's all these people?
They didn't need it, mate. You'd got Joe versus Kobashi. Did you not read the title of this show? God damn it, Chris.
Have you seen who's accompanying Joe?
Yeah, Jay Lethal. What the fuck is that?
Why? The thing is, the version on YouTube that Ring of Honor put up has no commentary, so we literally have no context for why Jay Lethal was there.
To be honest, the version that I watched and the version that again is on our Twitter page, it's A, Japanese commentary, and B, Mrs. Joe's entrance. So I didn't realise until about 15 minutes in that Jay Lethal was even out there in the first place.
To be fair, the same with the version on, because I didn't watch that version. I watched the version on, because it seemed higher quality. They put up Ring of Honor put up a free. It's weird, so you probably saw leading up to the anniversary show, which unfortunately got cancelled for obvious reasons. They were putting up trilogies of the best of it. They put up free Bryan Danielson matches, free Tyler Black matches, etc., etc. So we got to the free Samoa Joe matches, and in my head, Ring of Honor, Samoa Joe, Danielson, Kenta, Kobashi, CM Punk, just Kenta, so many classic matches. Morishima, I think they must have had a match. Neither McGuinness, loads to pick from. Austin Aries. What do they go with? Kenta, Kobashi versus Joe. Okay, good start, and then 2 random matches from 2015. Why?
God damn you!
It's you were so close. So close, Ring of Honor. So, I want to love you. Let me love you. It's funny. I rewatched this match this morning, and I've watched this match 500,000 times. Right, it's one of my favorite Samoa Joe matches. And I said we have very little to talk about here. What's the story? There's no story to talk about really. It's just. It's like what I do in Fire Pro. I wonder what would happen if Kenta Kobashi took on Taichi. And of course, Taichi wins. But, yeah, there's nothing to talk about. Apart from, according to Samoa Joe, Kobashi wanted to play a stereotypical Japanese heel because he didn't think anyone would know who he was.
Of this match, the moment that really, really struck me, and I imagine it gets talked about quite a lot, but as Kobashi enters that arena, or enters the, where was this? It was at the
Hotel Grand Ballroom in the New Yorker.
There you go. It was only in front of 800 people, which I didn't realise.
No, but it looks much bigger. The interviewer was just citing it was on the Stone Cold podcast, and Stone Cold was only about 2,000 people. So just talk about the crowds you'd be drawing in the Attitude Era when you think 2,000 is a small crowd.
Yeah, that's mental. But the first thing that I wanted to talk about was the look on Kobashi's face as he entered, because the noise level and the chant of, because obviously Kobashi is an enormous deal in Japan. Obviously, at this point he is the biggest thing, or one of the biggest things in pro wrestling Noah, and he's treated like a god, and rightly so. But he doesn't, because Japanese crowds and American crowds are they're two very, very different entities. You know, talk to anyone who's ever been to the Tokyo Dome, and they will tell you exactly the same thing. It's very respectful. You know, crowds get into it, absolutely, but they show respect by being a lot quieter. However, American crowds, and especially this crowd, are loud, they're chanting. They were so into this match. And for Kobashi to come out into this place where, you know, you've just said he thought no one would know who he was, and this place erupts with chants of Kobashi, Kobashi, and he just, he looks so humbled, and it was amazing. It was like, so if the interview that you're citing, he said he wanted to play a heel because he didn't think anyone would know who he was.
Yeah, he thought it was going to be like if Mr. Fuji came out.
So basically, what you're saying is this was like the Hogan versus The Rock from WrestleMania 18. Because by the end of this, Joe was absolutely the fucking heel.
Yeah, absolutely. Because he was a heel in Ring of Honor. Just Ring of Honor fans don't give a fuck about the heel face dynamic.
He's a good wrestler. I shall cheer.
Yeah, to be fair, we brought this up in the group chat earlier, and like this is when Garth finally joined in the conversation. Where, like, between the years of 2004 and 2007, I think you'll find it very hard to find a better wrestler in the world than Samoa Joe.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I will, before I talk about Samoa Joe, actually, because I want to talk about Samoa Joe. This crowd, wrestling crowds get a bad rap, and most of the time rightly so, because a lot of the crowds at the moment are cunty crowds. This crowd, without the level of noise that was consistent throughout this 20-odd minute match. Like, they didn't let up the entire match.
It was like watching a Brazilian football match.
Honestly, this probably put this match up 2 stars for me. Because, you know, as great as the Dream Match tag was, I feel like it was probably leaning on that tag a little bit too much. There wasn't a lot of story to get invested in. You know, but you know, you don't need that every time to appreciate a good match. But the crowd was so electric from the moment Kobashi entered the ballroom to the moment that they both left. Absolutely astronomical noise, and like I say, elevated the match massively. 2004, 2007, is that peak Joe for you?
Right, if it's not peak Joe, for everyone, I don't quite understand what people are seeing. In like 2008, gonna draw a fucking cock on my face, Samoa Joe. And then like 2009 to 2011, I do not care, Samoa Joe. And then 2012 to 2013, I kind of care, Joe. Then 2014 to 15, no, actually I don't care. And then in NXT, where he did care, but we didn't give him any time until he won the title, and that was actually better than people remember. But yeah, like, is there a better, like, okay, so like, just think of the matches: Punk, Danielson, Kobashi, Aries, AJ and Daniels, just AJ on his own, Christian, Sting, Angle, Liger, Necro Butcher.
Don't quote the Necro Butcher match in that list.
Have you seen the Necro Butcher match?
Mate, don't sully that great list of awesome matches with the fucking Necro Butcher.
Right, I'm going to defend the Necro Butcher match. It's actually pretty good. I say pretty good. It's actually really good.
I genuinely thought that was going to be the end of your defense of it then. Hey, I'm going to defend it. It was okay.
No, seriously. Like, but there's actually a really good story going in where Joe wants to defend revenge on Butcher because Butcher attacked some of Samoa Joe's trainees at a Chikara show. Butcher had like a stitch for a Big Japan show he worked a couple of nights before. So like he was split open fairly easily. And then Butcher decided, so you know how a normal person on, say, a scoop slam or an exploder suplex off of the apron, would flip themselves over so they can take the brunt of it on the back, on their back. So like while they may be hurt, they won't be seriously injured. Necro Butcher decided, nah, I'm not going to do the flip. I'm just going to land on my head.
And that makes it awesome.
Weirdly, yes. It's like that part of me loves that match. It's a part of me I hate, but it's a part of I'm to accept that.
So we've officially talked, Chris, about Necro Butcher more than you've talked about this match.
Right. Okay. Squeezing it back to Samoa Joe. Like, can you think of anyone who has that collection of high-profile matches in the high-profile amazing matches in such a short span? Like, I know. I'm sure someone's going to cite like Marufuji and Kenta who had like an insane 2005 Hiroshima or Nigel or Brian. And yeah, but like sort of with someone like Brian, most of his best shit was coming from his feud with Nigel, and same with Nigel actually, and they both did great things. But like for the most part, that's where the best stuff was coming from. Whereas Joe was having great matches with everyone, like and anything Joe touched at this point turned to gold.
I mean, pretty much the only matches from Impact era as TNA that I've seen are Joe matches, and the Joe matches that I've seen are matches with Kurt Angle and the three-way between himself, AJ, and Christopher Daniels. And they are outstanding matches. And this is the reason I wanted to talk to you about it, because it makes me so sad that Joe, on the main roster of WWE, they have this legitimate giant, this legitimate badass, this person who can spit on the microphone and everyone pays attention, who is fucking terrifying in the ring, who put on a good match with Brock Lesnar, who had a good feud with Brock Lesnar,
who had like the best feud of AJ Styles' title reign.
But you know, he's relegated to commentary. It
is disgusting. Like, even if we take his say we're going along the logic where what happened outside WWE shouldn't matter, which like in terms of when you're picking who you're going to push, it kind of should. But like we'll take WWE's ass backwards logic there. Just within I don't watch a lot of WWE nowadays, as you know. There was a period of like a month last year where I watched SmackDown with Kofi Mania and the fact that Rey and Almas kept having amazing matches. The one thing, apart from the Rey and Almas matches and the Kofi stuff, that I remember from that run of watching SmackDown last year was a promo that Joe cut where he came out and like he started like a scripted promo. It was like, oh, Randy, you keep smirking at me, or make sure the Viper gets declawed or whatever. And then Jeff Hardy tries to speak and he goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. Pretend like this is an AA meeting and shut up while I'm talking to the group.
Oh, and it's Orton's face.
Yeah, no, it's Orton just corpsing. It's like he couldn't handle it. And then like just went up to AJ and went, oh, AJ, how's Mindy?
Wendy.
So yeah, even just taking the WWE stuff, he should be much higher on the like even now. He is capable. Like he's had some of Roman's best matches. Again, he had the best matches of AJ's reign. He's had very underrated time with NXT because he kept dropping the title back to Nakamura, who then would drop the title back to him. It was all a bit weird. But yeah, I literally don't get why people aren't pushing him. And like going on to this match, he managed to weave a story out of where there really wasn't one. Like the story going in was his dream match, but the story developed into Samoa Joe getting annoyed of his veteran coming in and taking in all his thunder, so he started just being a cocky asshole because Ring of Honor is his house.
Absolutely, and this is made even better. You've hit the nail on the head there by saying going in, no story or very little story, but then for Joe to weave one, and for the match, the dynamic of the match to change pretty much on the fly due to the reaction that Kobashi gets as he walks through the door or walks through the curtain, is even better. And Joe just goes full cock from the start. You know, you've got the handshake at the start, which is, you know, fine. But from that moment, from that first handshake that he's pretty much obligated to do, it's in the name of the promotion.
Yeah,
there's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing after that.
I've been watching Ring of Honor TV today while I've been doing work in the background, because Ring of Honor is very good to not pay attention to. And on the tail of the tape, it was El Generico versus Jay Lethal. And at the bottom, it was like Code of Honor, yes, no. And I'm like, what? That's just a quick... But like, that's actually really good because it sets up who's facing who's heel. But like, yes, essentially an obligation. But yeah, after that, Joe just acted like an absolute prick, and then like hitting really hard started happening. Like, can you think of? I can't think of many matches we've done in this segment that hits as hard as this.
Consistent. I mean, again,
like I'm not being like I know that like we watched like the last time we had Kobashi versus Misawa where they literally did a tiger suplex off of a ramp, or so like matches where Misawa's been dropped on his head, but like they didn't stop.
It
like,
wasn't just that, Chris. It was the fact that, you know, a lot of people will say this was a very, very chop and strike heavy match. And it was, absolutely. But both these two are very good at it, play to their strengths. Walter's made a career out of it. But consistently, these chops were the hardest chops. Like, at no point were there any pulled strikes because of fatigue. Or I mean, I imagine Kobashi's probably feeding off the adrenaline in the crowd at the moment. But even the machine gun chops, which is a spot from Kojima I fucking despise, and you know that. But this, it just felt so right for the moment.
It's not just that. Kobashi's chops fuck. Like, holy shit. Like, we've discussed this before, but like, literally, so like, he always hits those chops that hard, right? Like, he hits them, like, with the strength of a normal chop, just ultra fast. He literally had to get emergency surgery on both shoulders because of how often he did it.
If you're having to have surgery because you are hitting people too hard, that goes to show just how... and I know this is a really weird thing to say, but the fact that they were both so fucking sweaty made it look so much better, because especially off Joe, shit, sweat was fucking flying off him with those strikes. It looked amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, like, normally when a match goes to the outside, like, you know what's going to happen. People are going to be thrown about. And you're like, normally, like, especially when you've been through a G1 or 2, your mind sort of shuts off during that segment. But no, because Joe kills Kobashi with a fucking running kick during that segment. Also, did you notice the Olay chance? I forgot that was a Joe thing in Ring of Honor.
I didn't notice the match, I must admit. But what I did notice was, you know, you speaking of on the outside, was that Kobashi literally chopped Joe over the top of the barricade. He literally chopped him that hard that Joe took a back bump over the fucking barricade. It was great.
This is the one part of the match, because some of the crowd can see what's happening, and like that just happens at indie shows. But like, I'm not being funny if you're going to a Ring of Honor show, you probably should know that. But like the crowd chanting, "We can't see shit," and it's like, calm down, come on. It's for one bad part of this crowd.
One final thing I wanted to talk about, and it sort of builds on what we were talking about with Joe, because you're right, it's difficult to talk about a storyline when it was woven into the match, and it was, you know, a pretty much off-the-cuff thing, but the fact that Joe was working in Kawada and Tenryu's signature moves during this, just to piss Kobashi off, to re-emphasise how little respect he had for this, effectively, this giant of the industry who's walked onto his patch, was heel work at its most superb. Just absolutely incredible. And I really, really, really enjoyed that. I enjoyed that almost as much as his face when he's cinching in those fucking submissions. He's an animal, Chris.
Yeah. And the one thing I think he should have done, and it's the one missed opportunity in this match, in my opinion, is he does the Island Driver, which is an Emerald Flosion.
Yes.
That would have been... Imagine A, the pop, and B, the fucking heat.
Oh, it would have been insane. But unfortunately, the match did have to come to an end, despite the crowd saying, please don't tap, please don't tap, please don't tap, which I thought was a really good chant. It did have to come to an end with Kenta Kobashi eventually putting Samoa Joe away, not with the Burning Hammer, unfortunately, but with the Lariat, 23 minutes and 42 seconds.
What a Lariat, by the way.
He decapitated Joe with this Lariat, which was incredible.
It's rumoured that whenever a really good Lariat is hit, somewhere Stan Hansen just mutters under his breath, nice.
Just tips his cowboy hat, spits into a spittoon next to his chair, and just carries on.
He just tips his cowboy hat. His wife's just sitting there going, Stan, what are you doing? You wouldn't understand, dear.
It just looks at her and goes, Lariato.
Oh, God, I can't... I'm now just imagining at the fucking Stan Hansen at the point of climax just going, Lariato.
Oh, why did you say... Oh, that was so sensual. I hate that. Oh. Oh, God. Oh, I'm sorry to anyone listening to how sensually Chris just said that. Match rating, Chris. What are you giving this?
Here's the thing. Because of the lack of story and because of all that, I didn't want to give this match 10 out of 10. I've watched this match a million times. I was like, okay, I'm gonna find the hole, and I didn't find it. I have to give it a 10. I have to. I love this match so much.
Now knowing the background as well, Chris, with that interview that you just mentioned, and how the dynamic of the match changed entirely in the middle of the match, it's got to be 10. It has to be.
They played that crowd as perfectly as they could play that crowd. And, unlike, say, someone like Hogan and Rock, if you did, for some reason, have no crowd noise, this match would still fuck. It would still fuck so hard.
Sure. Yeah.
But that's just what people say nowadays, Rob.
I don't
Get with the time.
I don't think they do. But yeah.
They do.
Certainly this match would fuck.
It doesn't sound right when you say fuck. This match fucks.
Is it with the... Right, you said Lariato in a sensual voice. Shut up.
Yeah, but I said that specifically to weird you out. That's the difference.
It succeeded. So, from All Japan to Ring of Honor, and we finished this show back in familiar territory with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and New Japan Pro Wrestling from 2017, Chris. So, the G1 Climax that you were watching era. But we're not watching the G1 Climax. This is a tournament. It's the Best of the Super Juniors 24, Night 12 from the 31st of May 2017. And the Block B match, I believe, no, Block A, match between Jushin Thunder Liger and Taichi. Now, you might be thinking, oh, Chris, you finally managed to get him to review a Taichi match. But there is a lot of background story to this match. Chris, talk me through it.
Okay, so effectively, well, first of all, I kind of want to go over how this year was, because this year was really good in the A block. The B block, in my opinion, was a bit weak. And when you look at the players in B block, you sort of see why. Sorry. So we have, in B block, you had Tiger Mask, Despy, Bushi, Kanemaru, Valdador Jr., ACH, Kushida, and Taguchi. And you see that, and you know straight away when you see that block who's going to win the block.
Yeah, there's no one touching Kushida there.
But also, it was also booked so annoyingly transparent that it hurt. So like to create the whole thing of Kushida might not get through, they had him lose. If I remember this rightly, they had him lose his first 3 matches, and then like just he happened to be able to beat the right people to go through because literally everyone in that block finished on 6 points.
Yeah, the top 4 in that block, Kushida, Bushi, Taguchi, and Kanemaru, all finished on 8 points, with Volador, Tiger Mask, ACH, and Despy all finishing on 6.
Yeah.
So basically, what they said was, this is a block of people who are pretty much of the same caliber and Bushi, and and they are all going to... I think what they've done there is they've said, right, well, okay, we've got Kushida, who everyone thinks is going to win this block. Why don't we put all the people of a similar sort of talent around him, and they will beat each other, and, you know, Kushida might have the odd slip up, and he won't win. So I can sort of see what they're doing there. It's when you look at Block A, which has got, you know, talent coming out of its ears, that'll be a good block now. That'll be a good block in 2020.
Yeah. But like most of it's went up to heavyweight or left the company at this point. But yeah, no, but like Block A just fucks so hard up. Like it's unbelievable. Like just to go over the other matches on this card, just to illustrate that, we have Taka versus Dragon Lee, which is strong, not great. Marty Scale versus Ricochet.
Tasty.
And Will Ospreay versus Hiromu Takahashi. Now, going into this day, Rob, Taichi, Dragon Lee, Ricochet, Hiromu, and Ospreay all had the opportunity to go through, and it all sort of depended on who won where. And if I remember correctly, Taichi had like the correct amount where like he'd be a favorite to go through if he could win his match, and also going into this match, Jushin Thunder Liger was winless.
Just going back to your first point, Chris, Taichi had got the tiebreakers on Ospreay, Dragon Lee, and I think it was just Ospreay and Dragon Lee. So if Ospreay had been Takahashi, which he did, and Taichi had been Liger, Taichi would have gone through because of the tiebreaker with Ospreay.
So Ricochet had to beat Skull. If Ricochet... I'm trying to remember who had... Did Ricochet have the most tiebreakers?
Ricochet beat Takahashi. Ricochet did not beat Skrull. Ricochet did beat Taichi. And he didn't beat Ospreay.
Right, so basically Ricochet needed Takahashi to... But there was a lot of moving parts, is my point here, Rob. With not even damn near, like just half block having the chance of winning. Which is like, whereas with the Kushida block, it was annoying because of course Kushida was going through. In Taichi, you have someone who is just A, the biggest heel in the junior division, which we're going to go into in a second, and B, a Super J-Cup finalist. In Dragon Lee, you have a big luchador who might create, and also the champion at the time, Hiromu Takahashi's biggest rival. You have Ricochet and Ospreay, who would have been perfect for the expansion that was just happening in New Japan. Like, this is when they started making moves internationally. Later this year, they had their G1 Supercard in San Francisco at the Cow Palace, and then you have Hiromu, who's the champion. So, like, all these people would have been good choices to go through to the finals anyway. So, like, it's not like in the G1 where it's like, oh, well, Zack has a chance on the last day, and it's like, of course, they're not going to put Zack through, but, like, here. But, like, it was just so perfectly booked, it's hard to explain. And then on top of that, no one wanted Taichi to go through because he had already ruined the J-Cup the year before.
Basically, Taichi was a bell end. Taichi was the El Phantasmo of 2017.
Except Taichi had, because of how chaotic that block was, had more chance to go through.
Right, so that pretty much sets the scene for you. What also the last story point. You mentioned Liger he was winless at this point. This was also his final best of the Super Juniors.
Yeah.
So coming into this, he was winless. Taichi was looking to go through, which nobody wanted at all, and Liger was on his last legs.
Well, Rob, I wanted, but anyway, yeah. For the majority of people, yes, they didn't want Taichi to go through. Yeah, this was Liger's last stand, and it's almost poetic in a way because it was his last stand defending the division. He tries so hard to make it more legitimate throughout his time in New Japan, and then you have Taichi who was basically making a mockery of the division by how he was booked. So it's the most poetic thing in the world. I mean, this match started with Taichi's normal bollocks.
Yeah, to start with, I mean, Liger had come down on his own to, again, an astronomical pop. And Taichi come down with...
I think it's impossible not to pop when you hear the...
And Taichi come down with Despy and Kanemaru because he's Taichi.
No Mio Abe, though. I keep forgetting she's a 2018 thing.
Oh, mate, she's so 2018, Mio Abe. But yeah, and then it starts with, there is... As a match, as a standalone match, it's crap. Because there's so much...
It's average as a standalone match.
Yeah, you've just got Taichi bollocks, you've got hanging with the ring bell hammer, there's chairs, there's bollocks from Kanemaru and Desperado. There is infinite ref bumps and, interfering with the ref. But it's not. This is one of those matches where it's not necessarily about the in-ring action. That's not necessarily what builds this match. Because if that was the case, this match would have got no reaction from the crowd. But the crowd, not to the same extent as the Ring of Honor match, obviously, but the crowd was so invested in this match. And it's because of the storyline and how well this storyline was booked. Because they booked a legitimate heel in Taichi, not he's really cool, let's cheer him heel. No, he was despised to the point where it's taken till 2020 for people to go, actually, Taichi's not bad in ring. They used to chant Taichi go home at him for 3 years.
One of the reasons he's so hated is because he had a very public thing with his wife where he cheated on her. And in Japan, that's it's not seen very well over here, but over here, you're not going to be spat on for it. In Japan, that can literally get you fired.
Oh, that's what happened with Taka.
Yeah. But to be fair, that's what happened with Taka, and they were like, okay, we're not going to use him. And then he was on TV the next week. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and then they've just slowly taken him off.
Yeah, they've slowly gone, and now he has his own promotion where fucking Micah came from Stardom, which is just the weirdest factoid. But yeah, what I did like was Liger would keep getting the upper hand, and then he'd keep getting cut off. It's such simple shit, but in something like Super Juniors, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, it was a very old style versus new style.
Yeah, no, it's a case of, and Super Juniors, when stuff like that happens, it's when in terms of momentum getting cut off, it's because it's someone like Marty who will cut you off by targeting a limb, or same thing with Kushida. Whereas here it's just a case of Kanemaru was in the right place and swept Liger off to stop the cannonball. And then Taichi got brutal and started... He was humiliating. He wanted to humiliate Liger. And so Kanemaru and Despy held him down. And Taichi got scissors. And I remember when I first watched this thinking, oh fuck, he's going to stab him.
That was where he went. No, I thought he was just going to cut the mask off, which he sort of did.
Yeah. But no, because it's a super weird bit of trivia, but I watched that Bound for Glory with the I Quit match where Christopher Daniels kept trying to stab AJ Styles. So like in my head, it's like, why would you produce scissors if you're not going to stab him? But no, he just cut the mask. He exposed Liger's chest and basically went, "Look, old flabby man." Took the mask off to try and like humanize Liger. Then cut off like some of the horns, some of his hair, and then there was Kushida and I think Taguchi.
It was, yeah.
Taguchi who jumped, yeah, and like held back Hanamaru, held back Despy, and then Liger launched a comeback. And like I don't think the comeback would have been half of effective if he didn't have that visual representation of being like brought down to earth.
It was almost like he was decaying.
No, no, exactly. It's almost like if this is Liger's last stand, this is how you put forward Liger's last stand. Because, oh my God, did I believe it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, not only is Liger's in-ring career decaying in front of him, this is his last best of the Super Juniors, Taichi is saying, no, the character, he is a man. This character is not only a man, but he is degrading in front of you. And just that word, humanizing Liger, because, there's so many people who don't know what Liger's face is like because his identity has been so well kept. I mean, I know there are photos out there now, but, not...
But also, like, Heath and Liger always had his face exposed, but, like, that was underneath, like, a million miles of face paint.
Exactly.
So, but, like... It's a really cool look as well, like the normal Liger mask with the face exposed.
Yeah, it was. Was a really good look.
Like, I want an action figure of, like, that specific version of Liger.
It really does invigorate Liger, though. Once the bullshit has stopped with the cavalry arriving in the form of Kushida and Taguchi.
That powerbomb where he almost fell over.
Yeah, you could... Obviously, I know there's not actual hatred there, but you could feel, the kayfabe hatred in Liger for what Taichi not only was trying to do to him, but was trying to do to the division. The division that Liger had basically spent his career building to this point, where it's a legitimate stand side by side with the heavyweight division. And Taichi was making a mockery of it, so you could feel the hatred coursing through him for that. And then that brainbuster. Oh my God.
Just, again, it's my specific love of old men dropping people on their heads. I have no clue where I developed this, but I do blame Yuji Nagata. It's super weird, like... You know what it's like? Remember when we reviewed TakeOver Brooklyn last year and we said that Bayley versus Sasha Banks is not special if you just describe what happens?
Yeah.
But because of everything around it, that's what makes it special. This match, that's what made it special. Like, don't get me wrong, in terms of like what happened between the ropes, yeah, probably not. Like, even that night, the Ospreay Takahashi match was brilliant because of course it was. Ospreay and Kushida from the finals, the Ospreay Ricochet match from both the Ospreay Ricochet match and the Ospreay Skill matches, Skill and Hiromu. Obviously, if you're wondering why I'm failing to name anything from Block B, have you fucking seen who's in Block B? Yeah, so this is my favorite match from the tournament. This is the match I remember most from the tournament because of all the story things around it. That's what made me love this match.
Yeah. So not only does Liger beat Taichi in 10 minutes and 2 seconds, but Taichi can no longer go through. He's been eliminated because Ospreay then beat Hiromu to move to 10 points. Liger avenges Taichi, sort of takes one for the junior division. The junior division is sort of saved from the scourge that is Taichi. And also Liger then rides off into the sunset of the best of the Super Juniors. Again, a tournament that he'd spent so long pioneering along with the Super J Cup. He rides off into the sunset with a win. So even the win itself is multifaceted.
Yeah, like, I don't know, this match has layers. And, like, it's weird when a match's layers isn't within, like, the match itself, especially in Japan. But, like, we've been looking at like Kings Road stuff where that shit got so laid that like fucking it was like the fucking monkey brain meme. But then here it's just there's so many outside factors for it. Of course, this match was great, and every time people talk about complain about like Taichi bollocks, I point to this match going, no, it can be good. You just need to give it time.
Yeah, I think the problem is with Taichi, it was every match, and he's a lot better now that he's a heavyweight. I mean, just look at the G1 just gone, G1 29. He had a great tournament, and to the point where he started to turn people round at the tail end of 2019 and tail end of 2018 into 2019.
Honestly, with that, I think it's partly because throughout the whole tournament he was basically just doing his Kawada impression.
Which is what he should be. He should just make him Kawada. I would love to see that. That's all I want.
I want to see Kawada I want a little bit of Taichi bollocks, because otherwise what the fuck is BORB going to clean up?
Just make him Kawada in his tiny pants.
Because to be fair, that's also amazing. Like, I think that's added so much to his gimmick, the fact that he has like a groupie basically who keeps saying sorry for
him. Rating then, Chris. What would you give it?
Okay, like we discussed, like if this match didn't have so many layers of storytelling on it, I would honestly rate it like between a 4 and a 6, honestly. But with all these layers of storytelling on it, I'm stuck between an 8 and a 9, and I'm waiting to see what you give it.
Right. So
you're gonna say 7.
I did say 7 originally, based solely on, from an in-ring standpoint, but, and again, I think we've said the word layers 53 times since we started this match.
We say it so much that it's become layered.
It is an 8. It is an 8, just because of the storyline, the amount of things coming into this match and going out of this match, the impact it had, and what it symbolised. I think it's an 8.
It's just the fact that this is the match with most to talk about on this. Well, it's not. I think we spent longer on the tag match for us because we had 2 new characters to introduce. To be fair, I did sort of weigh the when you had to pick towards this, because I did pick a WCW Liger match and then a PWG 10-way where he tells Tommaso Ciampa to stick his finger in his ass, and then Tommaso Ciampa's just there going, "Go Jushin Liger." I don't want to.
And you can now see why I didn't.
And then he slowed down.
So, are you all right with 8 stars then?
Yeah, like honestly, I think 9 is just my Taichi bias coming out, to be honest. But
well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings to an end this latest installment of the Classic Match Review. Thank you so much for listening in. Don't forget, you can talk to us on Twitter at YoungLioncast. Same with Facebook. Check out match ratings and the podcast archive, www.podmania.co.uk. Please go and subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. We are literally everywhere. Apple Podcast, Castbox, Google Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher. We're on all the big ones. Go and check us out. We'd really appreciate that. You can talk to me on Twitter at RealRobGoodwin. Chris, where can they find you?
And Bushi.
And Bushi, 2 N's. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, guys. Don't forget, myself and Chris will be back on Sunday, 11 p.m. GMT, to do the Mayu versus Io trilogy on the episode 4 of the Stardom cast. Thank you so much for listening, guys, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.